Hello and welcome. This is the 105th edition of the Scheldeprijs, and for many people the most important edition because it is the final race in Belgium in the career of the great Tom Boonen, and we are at his hometown to send the great man off into the sunset. He's got one race left after this, of course, Paris-Roubaix, the big appointment on Sunday. We'll have that here on Eurosport, but in the meantime this is the big farewell for Tomica. Tornado Tom, 36 years young. What a career it has been, and what a privilege and a celebration indeed it is in the Scheldeprijs, because they have moved the traditional start from Antwerp to his hometown of Mol. No surprise, it was Quick Step that they were the final squad called to the podium. They've got the reigning champion among their number, but very much playing second fiddle at the rider sign-on this morning as Boonen, to a huge and rapturous appreciation from the crowd. There's the trophy that they're racing for. I think Tom Boonen's going to be one of the ones that's contending for it. It's all about Marcel Kittel. 4 times the last 5 years he's won this race. Peter Sagan has honoured Tom Boonen by taking to the start for Bora Hansgrohe today, the world champion, feeling the effects of that crash in Tour of Flanders last Sunday, but he says he needs the ride and he needs to try and ease out those legs, but also to pay tribute to Tom Boonen, who's one of the all-time stars. Arnaud Demar, star in the making, already a star of cycling. Francis de Jure rider. Signs on today and could do with a good result. And this is very much one for the sprinters. Well, who will they be leading out for later on? Will it presumably be for Andre Greipel, this man, champion of Germany, in good form, has finished third in this race in the past. Can he come up with a big result? AG Tour Le Mondial, probably not looking towards the likes of Stijn Vandenberg, probably more thinking about Rudy Barbier, who's a very strong sprinter for them. Nico Denz, Julien Duval, they've got strong sprinters, but probably not quite of the caliber of well, what Quick Step are bringing to the party, not least Marcel Kittel. And Tom Boonen to the front for what is a bit of a party for him. 202 kilometers of a party. Kittel, well, enjoying the experience, enjoying the opportunity to send his great teammate off into the career sunset. He's said he's not really sure what he's going to do and whether he'll feel a little bit bored and exactly what the experience is going to be like of being an ex-pro. He's looking forward to maybe a little bit of a rest, but he's got work to do before he gets there. What a career it has been. And Tom Boonen, starting in his hometown of Mol, and then they had a little sort of a opening circuit which took them through Mol and then down into Balen, which is where he's currently residing. 7.5 kilometers of neutralized section before they headed through Balen, where his grandfather Raymond was in place to wave the flag and send the riders off into racing. And of course, Mol is the hometown of Wilfred Peters as well, the director sportif of the Quick Step squad, and they've been very much bonded, manager and rider, over the past 12-14 years. Try to point that one at the sky. Presumably it's got blanks. Raymond Boonen with the honour of waving the flag and sending his grandson off into battle for one more time in Belgium. Flag waves at the side of the road. The flag comes in from the director's car, and immediately and the action starts. Tom Boonen and the Quick Step squad not interested in getting into the early break. They'll try and set something up for a little later on for Marcel Kittel, and it didn't take too long for the group to establish itself out front. And beautiful balmy spring sunshine for the riders. A few clouds up there, but the weather's pretty strong indeed, as good as it gets really in the spring classics in this part of Belgium. And there is the parkour for today, the opening circuit that takes them through Ballon on a couple of occasions. Then they get the flag, and then they send them off into the west of Flanders. This is the oldest race in Flanders, oldest existing race, very much one for the sprinters. Finishes with finishing circuit, which includes a 1700-meter cobbled section. That's 3 laps of a 16.8 kilometer circuit and a cobbled section of 1.7 kilometers along that way. Usually doesn't serve to prevent a relatively large group from coming to the line. It has happened in the past, but it's been a while, 12 years since a breakaway rider managed to win the Scheldeprijs. And it, as I say, didn't take long for that early breakaway group to establish itself. When it did, well, things relaxed a bit in the peloton, but then they got going again. The 43 kilometers covered in the first hour. And that tempo has been maintained, indeed has risen. Plenty of Kassan cobbled sections along the way, not all of them marked on the road book. Looks pretty relaxed in the bunch at the moment. 2:51 to the 7 riders out front. Their maximum advantage had reached just over 5 minutes at one stage. And André Greipel, one of those riders, looking relatively relaxed as he just winds and wends his way back up into the group. Brian Smith is alongside me to run the rule over the riders today. One for the sprinters today and a celebration too of Tom Bonen's career.
Yeah, I think looking at the history of the sport, it's going to be one for the sprinters, and I can't see past that today. One of them being at the back there, the German champion Andy Greipel, who finished in 3rd place behind Mark Cavendish in Kittel last year. Unfortunately, Mark Cavendish not here. He's out injured, and he'll soon be back. I think he's out in Italy training, but hopefully we'll see him back in the coming weeks. But yeah, this is the unofficial Sprint World Championships. You can see the teams with the sprinters all towards the front controlling this breakaway. The maximum advantage they got today was 5 minutes, so they're not giving them too much rope and keeping them at bay.
Just over 71 kilometers remaining. The early break is doing its thing, and Kittel is working his way back into the group. Scheldeprijs finds the cobbles. There aren't too many cobble sections along the way by the standards of some of the other of the spring classics that we've experienced and enjoyed immensely over the last few weeks, but for all that, it's very difficult to go down quiet roads in Belgium without coming across some of those baby's heads, as they call them, the cobbles. And it is Lotto Soudal now on the front of the peloton. Team Sky to the fore as well. Looks like there's an element of anxiety about it. Plenty of teams are massing towards the front. Quickstep not too far away. They've been looking after the pace setting for the last little while. But now there's just a little bit of an injection of pace at the front, trying to close down that group up front of 7 riders. I think also perhaps the crosswinds could be coming into play here ever so slightly, because with 68.7 kilometers to go and a gap of 2 minutes and 43 seconds, Brian, there's no real danger about the break, but you just sense a little bit of urgency here. I suppose the cobbles could well be playing their part there. Everyone wants to maintain vigilance and make sure that they're not caught out.
No, these 7 riders, they went away right from the start of today's race, and maximum advantage just over 5 minutes, and then the teams all came to the front with the sprinters. Lotto have come to the front, Lotto Soudal, I think in a Greipel. Sky are there. They've got Viviani and Danny Van Poppel, and Danny Van Poppel was 6th in this last year. Fortunato, the 2nd division French team, thinking of Dan McClay, the British rider. Lotto NL Jumbo, thinking of Dylan Groenewegen, the Dutch champion, who's been on some reasonably good form since the start of the year. Cofidis as well, thinking of their man Bahani, who's managed to get a win in the last couple of weeks, and obviously Quickstep. And today I think Kittel has to stand as a favourite, but there's very good sprinters in this race today. But I don't think anyone would want to spoil the party of Tom Bonen today. And like you said at the top of the programme, Declan, I'm not too sure that Tom Bonen would be one of the favourites. He can sprint well, but I'm not too sure he's got the capability of winning this race, especially when he's got Kittel, his teammate. And what better to finish his last race in Belgium if the team can win. And I'm sure if that happens, he'll join possibly Kittel on the podium, but anything can happen in this race. Kittel has won this race in 5 occasions. Tom Bonen has won it in 3 occasions. 4 occasions Kittel has won this, and Tom Bonen has won it in 3 occasions. Unfortunately, Cavendish is not here. He's won it on 3 occasions as well.
Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, Mark Cavendish has been conspicuous by his absence in the last few weeks, hasn't he, from racing? He hasn't raced since Tirreno Adriatico, so a little bit of a disappointing moment for him. And there hasn't been much news coming out of the Mark Cavendish campus. We see his Dimension-dated teammate, Reinhard Jansi van Rensburg, just back at the team car there, and perhaps he'll be asked to sprint in the absence of Mark Cavendish, because this is certainly a race that suits him. He's won it in the past, went within a whisker of getting to Marcel Kittel in the finish of last year's event, but he's got this problem with his, I think, his left heel. Just is it an overuse injury? We're not really getting the full clear picture, but clearly he's picked it up round about Tirreno time, hasn't raced since then, flared up again in training, we understand, and well, he's out for today. He's out from Paris-Roubaix as well, which he had a pretty good run in last year. I think he finished 30th, so it's a strong run, and I think he was interested in seeing whether he could develop a career as a man for the classics, man for the Northern Flat Classics at the very least, and it'll be disappointing for him that he's not here today.
I think so, and also disappointed that he can't ride Paris-Roubaix, because I thought he rode well in Paris-Roubaix last year in support of Edvard Bosenhagen, finishing in 30th place. The teams he was riding for before, it was always a battle to try and get on the team for Paris-Roubaix. There was other better riders, but I think Cav has shown that he can ride a nice cobbled race. His programme did include Gent-Wevelgem, and then Scheldeprijs and Paris-Roubaix, but unfortunately that flare-up, it did happen during the or towards the end of the last stage of the Tirreno Adriatico, and he hasn't got over it.
Well, there is the list of winners, which includes Mark Cavendish on 3 occasions. Marcel Kittel, 4 of the last 5 years. It really is. The Scheldeprijs is his classic. Alexander Kristoff, Norwegian winner. It's been a while since we've had a Belgian. You have to go all the way back to Tom Bonen.
2006.
Yeah, 2006. It's remarkable that it's been that long since we've had Belgian victors. So that is something that they'll try and put right today. They've got riders in the breakaway group. They've got riders behind of great ability as well. But going back to Mark Cavendish, I mean, it's surely all for the Tour de France. It's a long way out from the Tour, and it's a no-risk strategy, I suppose, when you look at just how hard on the body that the Northern Classics are. If you're carrying an injury into them, then it's only going to compound things, potentially.
Look, over the career of Mark Cavendish, he's bounced over many roads, and he's never really been harmed in any way. Okay, some broken bones here and there, but he bounces pretty well, and he doesn't get injured. That's the one good thing about Mark Cavendish. He doesn't get injured, so I think it's more precautionary than anything else. It certainly has a problem, and I know he's in good hands. The doctors that Dimension Data use are excellent. He's in good hands. He'll get good training, and he'll come back fighting again. But you're right, it's about being right for the Tour de France, and maybe not for this race today or for Paris-Roubaix. It's about getting right for the Tour de France, and I believe his next race could be the Tour de California. That's if he recovers in time, but I think he will. It's just a precaution at the moment, and he'll get back into training. I know he's out in Italy at the moment doing some gentle kilometres, but I know Mark, he'll want to get back. He'll ride California, possibly go on to Slovenia, and then the Tour de France, which he did last year. Obviously the national championships in the Isle of Man this year as well will be his last race. Yeah, he's not going to miss that before the Tour. So same programme pretty much as last year, but Mark will be back. He's got some good medical team behind him.
Yeah, it'll be a great addition to the field for Tour of California, another event that will be on here on Eurosport during May. Runs alongside the Giro d'Italia, of course. Blanket coverage of the Tour of Italy here on Eurosport as well. We see riders heading back to the team cars, including Stein Vandenberg from AG Tour Le Mondial. Let's just give you the name check of the riders up front. We haven't had an opportunity to tell you exactly who they are, but up front for the Katusha squad, Marco Matthijs, 22 years of age, the youngest rider in the group, a German rider in the red colours with the white K. Also in there, Pim Ligtart from Team Rompot just rolls through to the front. We've got the national champion of Albania, Ugert Jupa, 27-year-old with the Willier Trestina team. Also in there, the oldest rider in the bike race is Frederik Voikelen, the Wanty Group Gobert, 38 years young now, and he's joined by Julian Stassen, Christophe Premont, Ligtart I've mentioned, Stein Steels is there as well. 7 riders up front, just under 2.5 minutes advantage, 63.5k to go, plenty of opportunity. Welcome back. 2 minutes and 22 seconds for the 7 riders up front. It's shrinking fast and they're chasing them down through Belgium on the way to the finishing circuit at Schutten today in the Scheldeprijs, the 105th edition, as we run the rule over these 7 riders up front. Matthijs, Ligtart, Stein Steels, Voikelen, Stassen, Jupa. Who do we leave out in that run? Christophe Premont is there as well, the 27-year-old Belgian. 4 Belgians in this run, and questions abound, and expectations are high for the Belgian riders, as you would expect. Great to have so many of you with us along this afternoon for the ride. At Nugget 48 is asking the question, is Baptiste Plankert related to Eddie Plankert? And well, I suppose the answer is no, but yes, sort of. Baptiste Plankert, of course, is one of the sprinters for Team Katusha today, and he'll be expected to do great things. His brother's here as well, Edward Plankert, who races with the Sport Vlaanderen Baloise squad. But neither of those 2 riders is related to the famous Eddie Plankert and Walter Plankert. Plankert is actually quite a well-known name in this part of the world. So, yes, he's got a brother called Edward, but not related to the famous Eddie Plankert that was such a successful rider in the 1980s. It'll be interesting to see what Baptiste Plankert can come up with later on. A little less is expected of Edward Plankert, but I think they might be setting up with the Sport Vlaanderen squad for Bert van der Berge. But Baptiste Plankert surely is the go-to man for Team Katusha. Both those squads have riders in the breakaway group today, so they're excused chasing duties. So I suppose they've one less for the for their wind-up for the lead-out train, but they do indeed have, of course, the honour of not having to do any work in chasing it down behind. No question about the teams that have taken on the responsibility. It is, as you would expect, the Quick-Step squad, and Lotto Soudal showing willing as well. It's been not exactly a perfect spring so far for Lotto Soudal. They will hope for great things with Andre Greipel later on.
I think they would be pretty disappointed with the kind of Cobbled Classics or the Northern Classics so far. Would like to try and get something out of it. Would definitely love to see Greipel on the podium yet again this year.
Well, there's the man of the moment, man of so many moments over the years, 36 years of age. His last victory in a storied career was Vuelta San Juan stage this year. 4 times a winner of Paris-Roubaix, 3 times a winner of Tour of Flanders, World Championships back in 2005, 6 Tour de France stage wins along the way, 3 Ghent-Wevelgem, 5 by E3, 3 by Brussels-Korn. It's the list goes on. And Tom Boonen is enjoying his ride into the sunset, enjoying the fact that they're not having to set the tempo at the moment. And Quick-Step brought, I think it was 4 riders into the final 2 kilometers of last year's edition of Scheldeprijs. It was as close to an armchair ride to the finish as Marcel Kittel could ever hope to get. He would be doing well if he's presented in such a perfect situation. Came off the wheel with 200 meters to go, and Mark Cavendish actually got pretty close to him, but it was very difficult to deny Marcel Kittel when he was set up in such great position as he was 12 months ago. What can Team Sky come up with? They've got great sprinting talent in the shape of Elia Viviani. And Danny Van Poppel, who sprinted well here last year, 6th on that occasion, but you would expect that it'll be for Viviani this year?
I'm not too sure. Only they will know. How is Danny Van Poppel feeling? How is Elia Viviani feeling? And I think they've got the battle towards the end to look at their options. I think going in last year's performance of 6th for Danny Van Poppel, it's going to be very difficult for both of them. And you know, in the past, Viviani is very quick. He's beats pretty much everybody that we've got in the field over the last couple of years anyway. So I think that Viviani would possibly be, you know, one of the kind of outsiders today. He's very quick, especially within the last 150 metres. He can come off. He's that track speed. He can still come off a wheel at 50 metres to go and win a stage. Like I think it was last year in Depana when he actually beat Kittel. So it's going to be very difficult for anybody to beat Kittel today, as you say. Declan, he's won this race 4 times in the last 5 years, as we see an incident in one of the corners. And it's a nervous race. These things will always happen because there's a lot of riders on these flat races just sitting in the wheels, and sometimes you come to some pinch points, some corners, and it's just a lack of concentration.
Well, Timo Rosen of Team Lotto NL Jumbo comes to grief. Nico Dents as well for the AG Tour Le Mondial squad finds himself in a difficult moment. Phil Bauhaus, his German compatriot for Team Sunweb, has managed to get back up and back into the cavalcade. Other riders trying to come through. Bike change required for the young Dutchman. Timo Rosen from Team Lotto NL Jumbo. Well, they've got Dylan Groenewegen, another team I think who could probably do with a result. I think they'd... let's just get it. That's just getting squeezed in the inside, I think, and maybe picked up a little bit of rough surface. Yeah,
you can see the inside there, and he get just squeezed out of it, really, and just kind of fell over it. But sometimes when you get to these low speed crashes, you come down in your whole body weight. I know I've crashed in a corner doing 5 miles an hour and broke my scaphoid. So I've crashed at 30 miles an hour and you know, walked away from it. So it's difficult, and you can see we're actually on the circuit at the moment, although we're still to go over the finishing point and do another 3 laps of 16.8 kilometres. But this is a kind of rough kind of pave before we come on to the river. We see it in the breakaway now on the left-hand side. We come along here and then start to come inland towards Schoten. So we are probably only about just over 6 kilometres away from the finishing line. Yeah, first of 4 traverses of the Brookstraat, 1,700 metres, that cobbled section. It's not absolutely vicious, especially in these relatively benign weather conditions, but for all that they can cause a little bit of grief. And no surprise that we've seen the Quick Step squad go to the front. Tim Leclerc really power his way to the front and make sure that they keep their riders in perfect situation. Interesting that Luke Rowe is going to the front so often and so readily for Team Sky. He's been a protected rider for the squad over the last few weeks, but perhaps more on team duty today. Yes, he's got a couple of good sprinters. We've already mentioned them, Van Poppel and Viviani, and I think it's the right thing to do for Luke Rowe. You can see some strapping in his leg, and I think it keeps him in a good place, out of trouble. We've already seen a small incident in the last couple of kilometres. So there's a lot of riders here in the race, obviously wanting to get a good result for their team, but also thinking of Paris-Roubaix and just to get a ride out today, one of them being the world champion, supporting this race, and obviously honouring Tom Bonnen, a former world champion, as a current world champion. So he's in this race today to try and ride out the maybe kind of stiffness he's got in his muscles from the spectacular crash he had in the Old Quaremont during the Tour of Flanders. So a lot of riders, and we've just mentioned Luke Rowe, are here to just get the rhythm into the legs before the Paris-Roubaix at the weekend.
Well, tapping out a rhythm at the front that's closed the gap down to 1 minute and 35 seconds. The brake's coming back. How soon? They're tapping out a pretty steady rhythm here. Steady for some and positively difficult for others. It's a healthy rhythm. Still possible for some of the riders to be able to have a chat at the back. Maxime Daniel and Elie Gerber for the Virgineo Vital Concept squad, who'll be hoping to propel Daniel Beclay of Leicester into position for sprinting glory later on in the afternoon. For the Sky Riders at the back, Luke Rowe at the front. We mentioned Luke Rowe before the break. 54k left in Scheldeprijs, and the riders are promenading down by the canal. They'll work their way inland again, and it's Luke Rowe. As you say, he's wearing the scars of battle after that crash with Sepp van Mark. Van Mark not racing today, not racing in Paris-Roubaix. Indeed, quite a few of the teams struggling to fill the rosters at this end of the Classics campaign. When they get this far in, it really is, it's been a bit of a war, hasn't it? And it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same as a stage race, is it? Slightly different. 53.6 kilometers to go. Peter Sagan, the world champion, stripes billowing in the wind, and great to see that he's honoured this race and has made an appearance. He's trying to ease out those muscles after his spectacular accident, you would have to say, at Tour of Flanders. Much discussed in the hours and days since then. And do we call it Jacket Gate? What do we call it? But I don't think there's been any doubt after endless analysis about what happened, and clearly it was a bit of a mistake by Peter Sagan, wasn't it? He was just taking it to the limit, and it ended up costing him dear.
Yeah, and he said that pretty much to himself, that you know, you could see them, all of them were on the limit there. The ride by Philippe Gilbert was absolutely phenomenal, and no room for you know, any margins, and he was really going for it. No Quaremont trying to go to the left, stay on some of the as you call it, smooth air side, you know, where the cobbles meet some of the dirt, and it is a little bit smoother. And unfortunately, he just clipped someone's coat. He could have clipped someone's coat. You could have clipped someone's arm looking over. It happens, you know, as a professional bike rider. You try and keep away from the barriers. We've seen this happen before. We've seen it happen in the Tour de France, where Tour Hushoff split his arm because of one of the big hands, the cardboard hands and things like that. So
he's an NXT bar in Paris-Roubaix a few years ago.
You don't go too close, and because he was on the limit and trying to win the race, he just clipped it, and he said himself it was partly his fault. So unfortunately, he took out Van Avermaet and Naesen. Okay, Van Avermaet came back and finished a credible second in the race. Then it happened earlier on when you know, Sepp van Mark, he knows the Belgian roads. His wheel gets stuck in Death Valley, and down he came. And you got to remember, these riders are full gas, and when you're full gas, you take some risks, and these things happen. And unfortunately for Sepp van Mark, he took out Luke Rowe, and Luke is back in this race, and I think it's a good thing. It gives you a good little hit out. But then looking back in a couple of years ago, when I took on Edvald Boasson-Hagen for the Cobble Classics, he was a big sign, and he was the rider that wanted to concentrate in these races. Gent Wevelgem, with the wind blowing off the roads, hit a post, broke his collarbone, and that was it. No cobbled season, and then he bounced back last year to finish 5th in the Paris-Roubaix. So sometimes, you know, these things happen. That's bike racing for you, and if you've got your eggs in one basket, then all of a sudden, bang, that's it gone.
Yeah, it's part of the attraction to a certain extent, but it can be such a disappointment. And Peter Sagan just hits a little bit of a speed bump there and loses a bottle. So
yeah, he may be the twice world champion, but he needs some practice in how to take bottles. Yeah.
Oh, no problem there. No harm, no foul. He pick up another bottle and he'll be back in. I think he's probably on a support duty today. It will be interesting to see what the Bora Hansgrohe squad do about sprinting honours later on this afternoon.
I tell you what, just to, sorry Declan there, as they come up towards the finishing line, just want to say a little bit in that maybe 20, 30 years ago especially, the world champion would be the world champion. You'd respect him. No matter what sort of form he's in, he wouldn't do any bottle duties. We saw it in the Tour de France when Mark Cavendish was riding, getting bottles as the world champion. Peter Sagan. Cycling has changed. There is no of these big main leaders. Everybody's helping each other.
And I mean, it's good to see, isn't it? I mean, he's capable of sharing it around. I mean, he recognises that today is a day perhaps just to ease out the legs and try and focus and prepare for Paris-Roubaix at the weekend. I mean, for all that, this is a very, very important bike race. It's a really prestigious win to get, but Peter Sagan, after the travails of the last few weeks, may be minded to just try and protect the legs a bit for the weekend.
I think he wants a hit out by getting bottles. I think he's maybe looking at one of his teammates, possibly Palucci, to try and help out towards the finish.
Okay, we're at the finish line. First of 4 passages, so 3 laps in total, 16.8 kilometres for each of those laps. And these the 7 riders up front, starting to feel the pinch a bit now. It's not much more than a minute advantage. It was at one stage up to 5.5 minutes. This is the scene just after the finish line, through that little tunnel and those cobbles, as we see another man in the stripes representing his glory in one-day races. There's a little bit of a postman get off for Andre Greipel, clearly not satisfied with his bike, so he's been back to the team car a little bit more than once lately. So that's the first time that we've seen that there's any obvious mechanical difficulty. He's got plenty of time to get that sorted out, and it's certainly something that he'll want to do. Andre Greipel, I feel confident, will be one 34-year-old German rider, will want to be up front at the back end of this one. Third, as we say, 12 months ago in the Scheldeprijs. Through the feed zone, altogether more hectic than getting them from the car, isn't it? Jackets and pretty much everything flying to the side. And Luke Rowe continuing to set the tempo on the front. Maybe for him as well, this is a way of easing the legs out, of getting the workout he requires. It is a remarkable thing, isn't it? Classic season, keeping the body working well, but the racing, the pounding that they get day after day, it's different to a stage race, isn't it?
A lot of the riders actually use this race as a kind of intermediate race, although it's a 1.8c race. They use it as a kind of midweek race to help keep the legs in a rhythm, because going from the Tour of Flanders into Paris-Roubaix, 2 big monuments where it shakes the body. Some people can handle it, some people can't, and when you're riding full gas for Tour of Flanders, and then you go straight into Paris-Roubaix, and if it's a fast Paris-Roubaix, it can be difficult to get the legs working initially at the start, so it's a bit of kind of shock to the system, and a lot of riders like to ride a bit of kind of full gas up to race speed midweek to allow them to kind of ease in a little bit more towards the Paris-Roubaix the weekend, and that's what Luke Rowe is doing at the moment. He's going, he's been doing some hard turns at the front, getting up to good race speeds. He's got some injury. The best way for that to relieve the injury a bit is the fact that you keep the body moving, you keep it, because the worst thing you can do, Declan, in a race is ease back too much the week before a big race. You have to keep disciplined, and Luke Rowe is in the best place. He's keeping out of trouble. He's towards the front, and I'm sure that he's gearing up for Paris-Roubaix this weekend, and good luck to him, because I think he's got the form and he's very capable of doing a very good result.
So it's like de Klerk again on the front for the Quick Step Floors squad, and they're setting a tempo assisted by Luke Rowe a few moments ago that's really lined things out. It's making it a little bit difficult for plenty of riders at the back. So yellow lace for Team Lotto Soudal and Andre Greipel's cohorts.
Yeah, Lars Bak is towards the front, but just behind Lars Bak, Declan, you've got Fortunel team in the white, and they came into this race with Dan McClay. Dan McClay, he was very good last year. He kind of came to prominence, I think, in the Tour de France last year. He won a stage of the Challenge Mallorca event at the start of the year, and but he comes in with, I wouldn't say great form, finished 10th in this race last year, so hats off to them. They're a second division team from France. They've put a rider towards the front, And it does look as if Dan McClay is looking to try and gain some scalps today, because most second division teams would probably sit back and go, well, we're up against the World Tour teams, sit back, allow them to do all the work, and we may try and reap the benefit later.
Pace is on at the front of the peloton. Greipel's going to try and make his way back in through the cars. We'll be back again to this break. Well, he's still in the cars. Andre Greipel will be hoping for glory in the 105th, I should say. Scheldeprijs, the man from Germany wearing the German national champions colours, is working his way back up through the cars and into the peloton. Should be able to safely make it back up after his mechanical difficulties. I'm not sure whether he's got a bike change. He certainly wasn't satisfied with the bike he had. Let's just see if we can see if there's a number on the back of his bike frame there. That will give us the indication about whether he's made a bike change. Well, he's safely in anyway, and Andre Greipel will have a bike that's pretty much identical to the one that he let go, always assuming he did, and should prove no hindrance to his efforts to... No, he's got his original bike, so it hasn't been a bike change, so he's got whatever change he needed to get made done. Jelle Wallace is there, safely at the back of the peloton, waiting to guide his team leader back up to the front of the bunch. That's how they play it, isn't it? And it doesn't look like Greipel wants to go up there too soon. He's going to take his time. 45 kilometers remaining. There's Lotto Enel Jumbo, the Dutch squad. Put the hammer down on the front. Team Cofidis. Of course, we mentioned Nasser Bouhanni, Lotto Enel Jumbo. Dylan Groenewegen will be their go-to man this afternoon. Team Sky showing plenty of ambition. Just under 45 kilometers remaining in the 105th edition of the Scheldeprijs, the oldest race in Flanders. And this year they moved the start from Antwerp to the hometown of Tom Bonen, and that is Mol, as a tribute to the great man, 36-year-old, who's completing his career on Sunday, and this is his final race in his home country. What a crowd there was out at the start. There'll be a big crowd, I can tell you, at the finish. Indeed, there already is in Schutten ahead of the finish, with Luke Rowe on the front of the peloton for Team Sky, setting the tempo, assisted by Quick Step, Lotto Soudal. Team Cofidis coming towards the front as well, clearly interested in the ambitions of Nasser Bouhanni. Seeing Bora Hansgrohe towards the front as well. They've got a couple of sprinters that might fancy it today. If not, Peter Sagan, the world champion. We won't rule him out, but he was on bottle duty earlier on, so I think he might be just looking after the sprinters in the name of Matteo Palucchi, and perhaps even Rudiger Selig, who finished fourth on a stage of De Panne last week and is in fine sprinting form. Pascal Ackermann as well has proved fast in the finish this year, but if I was asked to bet, I'd say Rudiger Selig at the moment. Probably they might even pick the rider out on the road, depending on who's got the best form, who's feeling good.
Well, that's the thing, Declan. There's so many good sprinters in there. Add in Eric Baska as well. They'll have to make the call. Ackermann was sprinting well in De Panne as well, battling it out with the top riders, finishing up there in fourth place in one of the stages that Christoph won. So it's going to be a tough call. Do you put a young rider that finished up there in the World Championships under 23 last year? Do you give him a big opportunity here in a big race, or do you go with maybe someone that's delivered in the past, Palucchi or Selig, as you say? So they've got 2, maybe 3 options. So they'll have to decide upon themselves. All 3 of them seem to be sprinting well, so it's going to be an interesting call to see how they decide what rider they're going to, because they can't all lead each other out. They're going to have to go as a team and help each other as a team.
I'd say there was a fair few hands hit the ceiling of the Bora Hansgrohe team bus when they were asking for riders to...
Who wants to be led out by Peter Sagan?
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go, yeah. Mind you, you've got to deliver, don't you, when you've got world champion stripes in front of you. It was interesting that Palucchi actually finished 6th on that stage of De Panne that Rudiger Selig got up for 4th, and so that's the way they worked it on that day, and they work it today. That's just one team, 22 teams in total, 14 World Tour squads among them, 8 Pro Continental squads in this packed bunch on the roads of Flanders this afternoon. 42.2 kilometres to go, and the pace has been pretty hectic all afternoon. Well over 42 kilometres an hour. Indeed, it's been stretching up 43 kilometres an hour plus. These riders starting to feel the pinch a little bit. Been out there for a long time, pretty much since the start. The break went early. Maximum advantage 5.5 minutes. It's down to just over a minute now, minute and 10 seconds, as you can see illustrated on screen. And the Julian Stassen in the yellow colours of the Varen Classic Equality Protect squad. 28-year-old, just slotted into a third position. Team Rompot's Ping Ligtart sitting on the front there.
It's a real mix in this front group of 7. You've got 2 really experienced, strong riders. One, Ping Ligtart on the left-hand side, former Dutch champion. Rides very well, rides aggressively, and Voikelin of Wanty Group Gobert, former winner of Wador Flanderen quite some time ago. So you've got 2 very experienced riders. Then you've got riders that you know, are out there just to kind of show the jersey. Matisse of Katusha, the young German world time trial champion, under 23 from Qatar just last year, trying to earn his stripes. And then you get Stein Stales, 27-year-old. And then you've got, as you already mentioned, Stayson and Primont of Varandas. And, you know, already Stayson this year has had 7 races where he's DNF'd, didn't finish. And obviously, last 4 races for Primont of Varandas, he hasn't finished. So there's some riders both experienced, some riders that are just trying to gain some form.
Phil Bauhaus, did he pull the plug or did he hit problems? I'm not so sure that he didn't just find that he wasn't much enjoying the tempo. The Team Sunweb rider with much to see. Does he get back into contention? Phil Bauhaus, German rider. Well, I think might have had a problem earlier on, did he? Was he one of the riders that came down in that crash we saw a little earlier? Anyhow, he's just dropped off the back of the bunch here. Let's see if there's anything obvious that has afflicted the German rider. And he's braking. And immediately rides to a halt. They're on the second passage across this cobbled section. Luke Rowe setting a tempo that plenty of riders towards the back of the peloton are not enjoying. It looks like a promenade in spring sunshine, doesn't it? I can tell you what, it's anything but for many of the riders in here that are really feeling it. There's Yellow Wallace, stayed at the back, and Andre Greipel has worked his way back up, so Wallace perhaps dropping back to the car, and plenty of bottles appearing everywhere. Lots of riders are going to be feeling it. Generally speaking, this race ends up in a group finish. As I say, it's 12 years since a breakaway rider won Scheldeprijs. Thorvald Venneberg taking the honours on that occasion. Up front, it's Ligtard on the front, making way for Freddie Voikelin, the 38-year-old, who on his day of days, I suppose, Dwarstor Vlaanderen way back in 2006 was his. Oh, and you're going to need a saddle. Not easy to spend. And the saddle hadn't quite gone at this stage, but he could feel it was about to. Oh. That's one way to get rid of your saddle, isn't it? And that is Manny Breschel. Super strong Dane, but he's not strong enough to ride another 40 kilometers at this pace. Standing out of the saddle, so he'll drop back to the Astana team car. Astana squad have an exciting young sprinter, Riccardo Minali, the Italian rider. Third on the stage of Dubai at the beginning of the year. The outset of his career with the Astana squad. Ruslan Tlubayev as well from Kazakhstan is very strong in the finish. Won a stage of Tour of Hainan last year, but I suspect they might well have a look and see what they've got in the shape of Minali at the back end. But the Astana team, probably not one of the outright favourites for honours today, and that's evidenced, I think, by the fact they're not anywhere near the front at the moment. Inside 40 kilometres to go, less than 25 miles of bike racing. Lotto Soudal on the front, Greipel heading back to the team car for more assistance. Kevin Deltom of Sport Vlaanderen Baloise is working his way back into the peloton after a brief stop for mechanical assistance. Meanwhile, the riders up front continue to plough on regardless. Inside a minute now is their advantage. Nothing being held back at this point. They know that they've just got to pour it all on and hope that they can hang on for as long as they possibly can. That's Pim Linktart rolling to the front. The Albanian champion Ugard Jupa of the Willier Trestina squad, and then takes his place on the front. Stijn Steels from the Sport Vlaanderen squad, 27-year-old, makes his appearance at the front. Julian Stassen, 28-year-old Belgian rider. Seven riders inside a minute now, their advantage. And inside 37 kilometers remaining in Scheldeprijs for 2017, the 105th edition of Flanders' most venerable bike race. It's the oldest classic of them all in this part of the world. And Pim Linktart, former Dutch national champion, his day of days coming back in 2011, and he's now on the front of the breakaway. At least he was, albeit briefly. Stijn Steels takes position on the front. Ugard Jupa, the Albanian national road race and time trial champion, it's now at the front. Meanwhile, down the back, well, I wouldn't say carnage, but there's been a lot of activity. Lots of riders going back to collect bottles, drop off jackets. Stijn de Volder, one of the oldest riders in the race, now giving him the benefit of his considerable experience to the Verandas Willems Krallen squad. And what a great pair of legs to have on board. Timothy DuPont, I think, is the man that they'll be looking after. Hasn't had a great start to the year. 15 wins was it last year? It was certainly an exceptional season by anyone's standards, but DuPont yet to break his duck in 2017. Could this be the day? Well, he's got work to do. Meanwhile, Yellow Wallace, we saw him at the back of the peloton waiting for Andre Greipel. Well, actually, I think that's what we assumed, but it would appear that he was waiting for a back wheel. Rode along on a flat tub for a little while. He's got a teammate up in the breakaway group, Marco Matthijs, the 22-year-old German, the individual time trial world champion in the under-23 category. So a big engine that is learning his trade on the front and in the breakaway of one of Belgium's biggest bike races, the 1-point HC or category Scheldeprijs. And we also during the break managed to catch a quick sight of Andre Greipel. Looked like he was coming back up from the team cars, so he's had plenty of difficulty, lots of irritation for him at the very least, and perhaps a few matches burned in terms of extra energy used that he probably wouldn't have needed to be doing.
Yeah, talking about matches, there's a lot of matches been burned in this this front group. They're not working as well together now. Pim Linktart is probably one of the strongest in there. When he does a turn, the others are a bit reluctant to come by him. So some tired legs, and you know the pace has to remain constant up near the 30 miles an hour, because the gap is coming down well under a minute now. But you can just see they're in a bit of disarray. They're trying to use hand signals. They want some help at the fronts, and yeah, it's some very tired legs in this breakaway now. And I don't think the peloton will be too worried about the 53-second gap. It'll be more about when they catch them.
Second passage of the finish line, second passage of 4 in total for the riders, as the breakaway group will be the first to for the spectators to catch sight of. 2 laps remaining. Just over 33 kilometers remaining by the time they hit the finish line. Julian Stassen, 5th on GC in the Circuit des Ardennes in 2014, was his the highlight of his career to date. So an appearance in the breakaway in Scheldeprijs, well, it matters to him. The Veran Classic, a quality protect squad. Great value in putting the jersey up front and showing it in a race of this importance. Look at the crowd out, it's absolutely enormous. I suppose the good weather helps. The fact that Tom Bonen is racing for the final time in Belgium, well, that is, well, it's a day to come out, isn't it? It's something to celebrate his career. He really has lifted Belgian road racing over the last 15 years or so. And the peloton now, Team Lotto NL Jumbo on the front. Fortuneo Vital Concept there. with Francis Moret on the front as well, setting a pretty testing agenda. Français de Jeu starting to make their presence felt in those blue and white jerseys. Arnaud Demar, and look at the riders lined out at the back. No one getting it easy back here. Piling across the road to get into perfect position, but you can tell at the back that it's actually a pretty testing and demanding pace that's been set. Through the tunnel. It's still a large bunch, and you suspect that the wind is just not quite blowing hard enough to really split this group up in any significant way on this finishing circuit. Well, they're flashing along at a pretty hectic rate, aren't they? And riders starting to feel the pinch and drop off the pace. This is Christophe Prémont of the Belgian rider, Verandas Willems-Crelan, in the breakaway group. He's the first to falter, and as you pointed out, Brian, they really didn't have total cooperation, and there's not totally even in the energy reserves that are available to these riders. No, the gap has come down under a minute, and some of the experienced riders are trying to keep the momentum going, and you can only keep it going for so long. And unfortunately for the Verandas rider, Prémont, who hasn't, he's not in the best of form. He hasn't finished his last 4 races, so he's been shaken out purely because he just doesn't have the form. So it's all hands to the pump, because this gap is coming down, and they're going to get caught no matter what. Looks as if it's going to be a sprint yet again today, and they all know it, but they all have to believe that anything can happen, and they have to try and push out, try and stay away from the peloton as long as possible. But I don't think it will be possible for much longer, because there's a bit of nerves in the peloton. Everybody wants to stay closer to the front, and it's the same when you come onto finishing circuits, albeit 16 kilometres in length. When you come onto a finishing circuit like this and the crowds up there, it inspires you, the speed is up. It's not because they're worried about who's in the breakaway, it's just about, they want to show well, the adrenaline's starting to run high, and they're getting closer and closer towards the finish. Well, look at the way the peloton's absolutely lined out. It's flat chat. I think that's that particularly technical section across the finish line and through the town. It could be part of the reason no team wants to be caught out there, but they also want to set a tempo that makes it tough for everyone. No one getting a free ride here. This is, well, hammered down in a big way. If they keep going like this for the next 30 kilometres or so, the bunch is not going to be as big as it is. How do they keep it going at this kind of a rate? But it is very, very impressive stuff. Luke Rowe rolls to the front as if it's not really all that difficult at all. Well, I can tell you it certainly is. Another rider dropped from the break, and the breakaway riders are going at a very impressive rate. Marco Matthijs, at the outset of his career at a World Tour squad, well, it's a healthy distance for him today. He's over 170 kilometres in the legs, and they've cried enough at this point. Everybody thinks, Declan, this is because it's flat, it's nice and easy, but you got to remember the pressure is on the legs the whole time, especially in the breakaway. There's no descent for them to ease back, and it's on a flat race like this, when you're riding at pretty much an average of 28-30 miles an hour, it's pressure on the legs the whole time, and all of a sudden you get towards nearer to that 200 kilometre point, and the legs start giving out. It's already given out for Prémont. It's now given out for the German under-23 World Time Trial champion Matthijs in the breakaway. So slowly but surely the breakaway is starting to fall apart. Prémont's done. Matthijs is done. We're down to 4 up front. Lichtart is there. Sten Steels, Freddie Voikelen, and Julian Stassen. And Jürgen Juba as well, yeah. 35 seconds. It didn't take long for them to slice about 20 seconds off the front. Now there's a little bit of a reset at the front as Lars backs up there for Lotto Soudal, crowding around him. Jerseys from Team Kofit is similar red colours. That's the French squad though. Behind the Belgian team, Lotto Soudal. Lotto NL Jumbo, the black and yellow. Team Sky in their familiar black stroke blue jerseys.
I think the main danger here, Declan, is the cobble section. Matthias has just been brought back, so his job has been done. He's probably been given a job of make sure you're in the breakaway today, and he's done that well. But you see the teams starting to come towards the front now, so I think they're more worried about this cobble section before they drop down towards the canal and into the finish again, because we saw from the last time over that section, there was saddles in the road, there was bottles in the road, and there was a bit of a danger. So with the speed now being increased, a lot more of the teams are bringing their main riders towards the front now.
Yeah, it's definitely tough on the bikes, this one. It's probably not as tough as Paris-Roubaix, but interesting that Tom Bonen's riding disc wheels again today after riding with the rim brakes at Tour of Flanders. Back on disc brakes today, and discs expected, of course, for Paris-Roubaix at the weekend, so he's just fine-tuning and finalising his Paris-Roubaix setup. Not sure whether he has that interesting little front suspension system in the head tube of his bike today, which made an appearance last weekend. Pim Ligtart can put out the watts. Former national champion, as I said, 28 years of age now, second on the stage of the Tour of Valenciana earlier this year, showing that he's got good form. Finds himself a Team Rompot and is putting himself in the shop window today, doing a really good job. Zupa as well.
I think Ligtart is happy where he is. He rode for Lotto. He maybe never got the same opportunities that he's getting now with Rompot. And okay, it's a second division team, but the Dutch team of Rompot are really giving him plenty of opportunities, and I think that's the sort of rider he is. He's a very aggressive rider, wants to get in the breakaways, and sometimes when you're in a World Tour team, you're under a lot of orders not to get in the breakaway today, to follow, to do this, to do that, and sometimes a lot of riders like a little bit more of a free roll or some freedom in a second division team. It done Peter Weening no harm, again, going to Rompot over the last couple of years, and you know, he's come up trumps with a few events. So it's each to their own. Riders get picked up because they are aggressive getting in breakaways, but then they go into World Tour and they're given a job to do and don't always get that freedom, and a lot of people like to get out front, like to get in the breakaways and like to get that opportunity to try and win races.
Yeah, Peter Weening took a great stage victory in Tour Suisse last year. I seem to remember him climbing to the summit on one of those stages. And the hammers down at the front. Quick Step have arrived on the front, and that didn't take long. He did it as Marco Matthijs finds himself jettisoned from the main bunch not too long after being scooped up after spending the day in the break. Well, not sure if he'll roll through to the finish, but he certainly has had a very, very useful outing in Scheldeprijs this afternoon. 105th edition of this race, which began back in 1907. Maurice Letourgui of France, the inaugural winner. Oh, and punctures afflicting the Veron Classic squad. Kevin Ista, Belgian rider, picks up a rear wheel puncture, and he's got plenty of time to get back in if he's got the strength. Roy Jans, you would expect, is the rider they're going to look after. The Veron Classic Quality Protect squad, 13th in this race last year, was a solid result, and he's had a string of top 10s over the last 12 months. So Roy Jans capable of producing a decent sprint finish this afternoon, as the teams are starting to get organised. Still certainly very much into the final of this now, and you see the way the teams are all starting to mass and try and get together with each other, and pretty much super keen to make sure that they find their sprinters. A bunch crowded across the road as they prepare for the finish coming soon. So it won't be too much longer before these riders, the remaining riders in the breakaway group, are mopped up by the peloton, which is charging along at an impressive rate. At the back of the peloton, Michael Golartz for Verandas Willems Krellon, just one of the riders not enjoying it too much. His teammate Christophe Premont was out front for much of the afternoon. But, he has been called to account, and he's gone back into the peloton. Looks like Freddie Voikelin is feeling a little bit Stain Steels as well for the Sport Vlaanderen squad, as Hugo Jupa, the Willia Trestina rider, the Albanian 27-year-old, presses on at the front. Arnaud Demar on the front for Française de Jeu.
Yeah, kind of telltale sign that doesn't look as if he'll be sprinting today. So deciding to be his teammate to one of the other riders in the team.
Well, Jacopo Garnieri of Italy is a very strong sprinter for Française de Jeu. Marc Sarrault has been known on occasion to try his luck in the big group sprints and come up with a decent effort. Looks like Jupa is going to win last man standing. Who's he got for company? It is not going to be Julian Stassen. Pim Ligtart, though, wants to resist and hang on for as long as he can, but good effort here by Jupa.
He's strong enough. He finished 50th in the Tour of Flanders at the weekend. National road and time trial champion of Albania, 27-year-old, but he's got a strong rider with him, and that's Pim Ligtart, 28-year-old Dutch rider, who's on some reasonably good form after finishing 8th in the general classification at De Panne last week.
Interesting that with that kind of form that he would have decided to go in the break today.
I think he wants to show, and he can sit in the bunch and get defeated in a sprint. Pim Ligtart can sprint well in a hard course, but not in a course like this. So it's either you sit in the wheels or you get yourself in front and get some good kilometres of some good racing in the legs.
Jupa doing all the work here. Pim Ligtart hanging on grimly through this 1700 metre cobbled section called the Brookstraat. Now make their way out of that, head along the waterside, and it won't be too long before the bunch pick them up. Resisting for a little while longer, and who's going to emerge from the bunch? Well, Stassen from the breakaway group is in between. And Freddie Voikelin here in the blue and white colours, accompanied by Stain Steels in the yellow, blue and white colours, as Française de Jeu and the Quick Step team setting the tempo and setting the agenda on the front of the bunch. I wonder if any of the riders hit any difficulty coming through that section. Oh well, it doesn't take long before we get our answer, does it? Marcel Seberg of Lotto Soudal, and they not a man to lose really. I mean, he's a big engine, and I think Lotto Soudal would want to have kept him in there for as long as possible. He should be able to get back in plenty of time.
Yeah, he should be okay. But Seberg is in the main leader rider for Andrew Greipel, so they want to get him back as quickly as possible.
He's a huge rider, isn't he? Almost 2 meters tall, and it would provide plenty of shelter, and he can certainly generate the watts. Marcel Seberg does a really solid job for his compatriot Andre Greipel. 22.8 kilometers remaining, and it's bye-bye for Julian Stassen. Just 2 riders still out front by the narrowest of margins at this point. The bottles fly, they barely hit the ground around here. Christian Canet starting to make his presence felt towards the front for Team Sky. And the Quick Step squad starting to mass towards the front. They've had de Klerk doing really solid job. The longer he can stay out there, the fresher it keeps his teammates, and that's the value of the sort of work that he can do.
Well, at the start when the breakaway went, it was the team of Kittel Quick Step, the favourite for today's events, came to the front, but then all of a sudden 5 of the other teams came to the front. Lotto NL Jumbo, Sky, Fortunel and Cofidis. So they've all kept kept the breakaway gap down. They've all done their job, but it means that the team in blue of Quick Step are somewhat fresher. As you say, Declan, they're only using up 1 rider so far, Tim de Klerk. they have got, as well as last year's winner, Kittel, they've got Tom Bonin, the star of the day so far, Elio Kaiser, David Martinelli, Fabio Sabatini, Zinedek Stibar and Matteo Trentin. So they've got some power going into this final lap.
Certainly have. Bonin can sprint if he was asked to, but I don't think he's going to be. It'll be all about Kittel today. Can he make it 5 wins from 6? Stibar can sprint too, but hasn't done too much bunt sprinting of late. Matteo Trentin as well. He's good in a group sprint, but needs, I think, the day to be quite a bit harder than it's been to this point. Seberg, not long before he's back in the fray, and he should have time to recover before he's asked to do the big lead out later on. Lars back too, going to help him back towards the front. Still the two riders persevere with the narrowest of margins now, just 13 seconds for them with just over 21 kilometres remaining in this, the 105th edition of the Scheldeprijs. Pim Ligtart out front with Ugert Zupa, the two remaining riders from the 7 riders that were clear for much of the afternoon. Marco Mertijs, Christophe Premont, Stan Stales, Frederik Voikelen, Julian Stassen have been mopped up by the bunch, and for the most part spat out the back end as well. And it's just these two riders that are about to cry enough, as Team Katusha, it would appear, on the front of the peloton.
Come on over here, he said to the rider,
the Team Sky
amateur
outfit,
rider
yeah,
on the pavement. He said, come on over here and give us some help. That's nice to see. These guys are just waiting for the bunch to come along, sprinting for about a few hundred metres, trying to stay up with some of their heroes. But Pim Ligtart's seen the funny side there. Yeah,
he's capable of laughing, even though he's probably feeling the pain, but it just shows you, doesn't it? I mean, amateur riders capable of generating the power necessary to stay with them for a total of maybe 300-400 metres, and they've been out there all day doing that exact thing. And that's just one day in their life. You know, you do that again day after day, week in, week out, and that is the true measure of professional cycling at this level. It really is a different sport. But Peter Sagan now starting to work his way to the front of the peloton, staying out of trouble, staying at the front, and leading his team, leading his squad, breaking a path through the wind for his... Well, normally they're the lesser lights of the Bora Hansgrohe squad, but Matteo Palucchi, perhaps Rudiger Selig, could well come up with a big result today. Team Katusha, well, they don't have Alexander Kristoff in their lineup.
Yeah, they'd be happy to be in this situation in a lap's time, very early to come up to the front. AG2R coming up, and they've got the big figure of Stijn Vandenberg at the front. They've got possibly, you know, a couple of decent enough sprinters, but is it enough to beat the likes of Kittel? We'll have to wait and see. But a lot of the teams starting to come to the front. We've already seen Peter Sagan, the world champion on bottle duties, is up towards the front, keeping out of trouble and helping out his team towards the front of this race. But we're starting to see some riders from Team Dimension Data, former winner Tyler Farah, right towards the front, looking around, and he was one of the riders that really helped Mark Cavendish get in a very good position last year to sprint to second place.
No Mark Cavendish this afternoon. He's out injured. His team finally confirming that his absence over recent weeks is as a result of an injury to his left ankle, which has plagued him since Tirreno Adriatico. Flared up again in training recently, and he's unfortunately having to rest up, and he will battle on later in the season. Pim Ligtart at the back of the bunch now, was off the front for most of the afternoon, inside 20 kilometres to go. Well, Team Rompot are going to have to think about perhaps André Luiz, who could come up with a decent sprint for them. It's the AG2R Le Mondial squad on the left-hand side of picture. Stijn Vandenberg showing the scars of battle. He would have been expecting, coming into the Northern Classics, that he would have been to the forefront for the AG2R squad, but we've been really the revelation, I think, of the Classic season has been his teammate Oliver Naesen, who is on the start line today. Not sure how he's feeling after his his efforts over the last couple of weeks, and indeed that crash that he ended up going down in with Peter Sagan. Sagan we've seen in the bunch. Naesen will also be trying to protect his his body and try and prepare it perfectly for the battle to come on Sunday afternoon, Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah, just about keeping your top rider safe, because in this race it's been notorious over the last decade for some nasty crashes, and you know, fingers crossed everybody gets to the line safe. See Lars Bohm on the right hand side in the yellow for Lotto NL. Jumbo still AG2R towards the front in red jerseys of Katusha. A lot of teams still sitting back, rightly so. There's still 1 lap to go, but you can just see a lot of the teams starting to get organised, thinking of that cobble section, because they come out that cobble section straight onto the canal, and it's pretty much all strung out, and it can be a very hectic finish in the end.
Picked out Andre Greipel in the middle of the shot in the white jersey, German national champions colours, just surfing the wheels a little bit, just trying to pick up teammates. Some of the other teams at the very front a little bit better organised. Team Lotto NL Jumbo in the yellow and black on the right hand side of the picture, looking after Dylan Groenewegen, and he's got Dutch national champions colours, so predominantly white. They pick up the bell, so 1 lap of sustained lunacy left for this squad of riders as they race down through 1 more lap remaining. 16.8 kilometers in total in Scheldeprijs. Team Katusha to the fore and in prime position. It's quite a technical beginning to the lap, and remember they've got that 1700 meters of cobble section. Not these cobbles, these really don't count in they wouldn't even be described as cobbles in Belgian terms. Back of the peloton riders just riding at this point to hang on. Dimitri Klaas of the Team Cofidis squad not really able to make a contribution, just about getting the miles in his legs at this point. Just over 10 miles remaining in Scheldeprijs for 2017. Team Katusha pushing hard on the front of the peloton with just over 16 kilometers left. Baptiste Plankert is in fine sprinting form for them. Michael Morkov could be asked to step up, but I think the expectation is that Baptiste Plankert could well be the man to do the job for them this afternoon. And the peloton strung out through this technical section in the town of Schoten. Not too far from Oudenaarde here. And the peloton in 1 long line as they start a field of miles. Total of 200, just over 200 kilometers, 202 kilometers to be precise. And Team Katusha own it at the moment, but well, as you say, Brian, they'd be absolutely delighted if they were in this position 15 kilometers from now, but hanging on to it, well, that's another story indeed. And we're seeing this pattern emerging again, where Quick Step spend much of the afternoon looking after the pace setting. As they get closer to the back end of the race, they go missing a little bit, and they'll try and recoup and then come back inside the last few kilometers.
Yes, in the breakaway, it's a very hard race to be in, because there's no ease up. You have to keep the pressure on the whole time. But if you're sitting on the peloton, it's not so bad. So there's a lot of power left, and that's why we're seeing, we come on to the last lap, and everybody could sense it. Everybody was starting to come towards the top, towards the front, and a few teams are starting to keep the pressure on, and it's resulting in a lot of the peloton being strung out. So inside the last 15 kilometers now, you really want to be in the top 20, 30 riders, and that's why we're seeing the likes of Tyler Farah towards the front for Team Dimension Data. They're the experienced riders. They know they've won this race in the past, and it's about having maximum power to put into the sprint in the end, and that's why we're seeing a battle. We don't normally see these battles in other races, because at 14 kilometers to go, it's a long way to go to keep at the front of the peloton. But such as this course today, it's speed, it's cobbles, it's fairly technical lap here, especially when it comes into the finish. It's all about positioning.
Well, Lars Bohm finds himself off the back, the Dutch rider of great renown, not perhaps having the season that he would have liked to this point. There's still plenty of battles to come for him. Thought I picked out Scott Thwaites to the fore for Dimension Data. I wonder if the Dimension Data squad are going to ask Scott Thwaites to do a job. We can also see Janse van Rensburg, Reinhard Janse van Rensburg, sitting well to the fore as well. Third of the Dimension Data riders on the right-hand side of picture, about sort of 15th, 20th rider at the moment. So they could well be setting up for him. Surprised, Brian, that they're not looking at Tyler Farr, winner of this race in 2010, twice a second-place finisher, a superb sprint finisher over the years, Tour de France sprint winner as well. Is it? Would it not be the ideal race for him?
In the past, yeah, maybe 5-6 years ago, but at the moment he wants to play more of a support role and pass on his experience to some of the younger riders. They've got Ryan Gibbons also in the race today. He won the Tour de Langkawi, won a few sprints as well. But Janse van Rensburg, Reinhard is here today, the South African champion, and he can sprint well. He was just beaten at the start of the year by John Degenkolb. So I would think that he's probably the fastest sprinter that they've got. Scott Thwaites doesn't mind a messy sprint and can get involved. And this can be a very messy sprint, but Reinhard Janse van Rensburg is just coming back after a bit of an injury. So we'll have to wait and see how they set up. Mark Renshaw is also a rider that can sprint and is up there towards the front as well. So there's a lot of chopping and changing. And I've also noted that Tom Bonin is looking after Marcel Kittel very well.
So plastic bag picked up, an unwanted souvenir from the day in Scheldeprijs. Cannondale squad, Cannondale Drapac professional cycling team, to give them their full title, have Wouter Wippert, was 8th in this race 12 months ago. Tom van Asbroek would certainly like to do a job on home soil. Say Tyler Farr looks like he's to the fore. I think it's more likely to be Reinhard Janse van Rensburg. He seems to be at the back of the riders for Team Dimension Data on the left-hand side of picture in the white colours, the black shorts. On the front, though, it's AG Tour Le Mondial. They've got Rudy Barbier, French rider, in fine sprinting form. Nico Denz we saw on the deck earlier on, and Julien Duval would be their fastest finishers. Barbier perhaps the rider that they're going to go to this afternoon. Just over 11 kilometres remaining, starting to intensify the pace on the front, and some of the other teams satisfied that it's AG Tour setting the agenda. Tom Bonin now trying to carefully police this one and look after it for Marcel Kittel. Just two riders for Quick Step at the front of the bunch, and Tom Bonin just making sure that that Kittel stays out of trouble.
Yes, he's doing a very good job, and it's been noticed over the last few kilometres. Quick Step haven't really got organised. Okay, they've still got some time, 11 kilometres, but it's a lot easier and harder sometimes to move up. When I say easier, it's not bunched up. There's some pace in the peloton, and you can move up. But as I said, you waste a lot of energy when you're moving up, when these riders are riding at 50 k's an hour. But a Quick Step team still have a bit of work to do to come towards the front. They still have 10 kilometres, but Tom Bonin's got the favourite in place. You can just see them just down in the left-hand side. There's about 4 of them. One of them towards the middle. They're trying to come up, but the pace is high enough. There's gaps opening, and there's room to move a little bit.
Well, Quick Step won't panic, will they? With over 10 kilometres remaining, 2 riders up front, and Tom Bonin will orchestrate affairs. He'll decide who it is that's going to be leading, and make sure that, most importantly, the rider with Dossard #1, the big, tall, powerful figure of Marcel Kittel, is propelled safely into the perfect situation. Well, less than 10 kilometres remaining in Scheldeprijs for 2017, the 105th edition. AG Tour Le Mondial would like to own this one, but they'll do well to hang on all the way through to the finish. Massing at the front on the right-hand side in the yellow colours, Team Lotto NL Jumbo. They've got Dylan Groenewegen in those red, white and blue Dutch national champions colours, sitting 3rd rider. That's on the right-hand side of picture. On the left, we've got Tom Bonin in his final race in Belgium, trying to orchestrate things for Marcel Kittel 4 times a winner of this race, 3 times a winner for Tom Bonin. They know exactly how to get to the line in Scheldeprijs, and Quick Step have the cream rising to the top at the perfect situation. They've got a few other riders who'd like to get back into contention to help them. Looks like Stibar is working his way up to make it 3 Quick Steps to the 4, but still with 9 kilometers remaining, it's a long way to go. The Dimension Data Squad, no Mark Cavendish on their roster today, but they do have Reinhard Janse van Rensburg, who can surely do a job for them as the other squads are trying to work their way into contention. Team Katusha moving up through the middle. We've got Trek Segafredo as well. Eddie Toons, 4th in 2016 in Scheldeprijs. Trek Segafredo have a Belgian rider with ambition and with no little ability. We've seen plenty of evidence too of Team Sky. They've got Elia Viviani. Of course, all the teams want to get to the front, and that's why Stibar really put the hammer down there to get to the Brookstrap in perfect prime position. Yeah,
he was waiting for the gaps to open, came up at the perfect time just before this cobble section. It means that Tom Bonin doesn't have to go to the front. He can keep that that power for when it's required in the last kilometre. But Quick Step are in a very good position. Youssef Regigi, the Algerian rider for Dimension Data, has moved up towards the front as well to help out. Does look as if their man today could be Mark Renshaw.
So Tom Bonin goes to the front, sits on the tops of the bars and has a little look around to make sure that he's not dropping anyone. I tell you, with the power that he puts down, it wouldn't be at all surprising if he was putting a little bit of daylight between himself and the rest. It's perfect situation for Marcel Kittel. He's in prime position at the moment, got through the cobble section without any difficulties whatsoever, where the other teams and the other riders as lucky as he was. Well, don't put it down to luck. It's about positioning, it's about strength, it's about commitment. AG Tour Le Mondial, second team in line at the moment. Trek Segafredo looking to look after Eddie Toons. The Dimension Data Squad lost a couple of positions, but still in prime situation at the moment. The Lotto Sedal squad are well to the fore as well in their red colours. Plenty of red teams. We're starting to see the Top Sport Vlaanderen squad, Sport Vlaanderen Pauwels, excuse me. They've renamed Bert Leberge, who will be their go-to man for the sprint this afternoon. Other Quick Step riders starting to try and make their way up, but it's a long way to the front when it's strung out like this.
Yeah, it looks so easy, Tom Bonin, and you can see some faces a little bit further back. Edward Toons, 4th last year, is up towards the front in the red and the black of Trek Segafredo as well.
Tom Bonin lines them out for one more time. Reliving past glories, now very much on team duty. He'll think about racing for his own ambitions on Sunday in his final race, Paris-Roubaix. But this, his final race in Belgium, that's going to plan so far in terms of looking after the interests of Marcel Kittel. Riders at the back, going out the back for good now. Taco van der Hoorn, Team Rompot, waves goodbye to the peloton as they charge on towards the town of Schoten. Quick Step now have Matteo Trentin starting to make an appearance towards the front, so they've managed to get riders into position at just the right time.
Slowly but surely, yeah. The Stibar in the front, Trentin coming up, and you know, they've got Martinelli also moving up towards the front. So they've got some numbers now. They have got the #1 from last year, Kittel, one of the fastest riders in the world and probably the favourite for this event today. But you can see in East Standard, John Dibben moving up. They've got Viviani very close to them as well. So they're all starting to move up. And also the Welsh rider on that Tino and Duel. So they're all starting to mass towards the front now.
Christian Knaesku is there as well. So Team Sky have got plenty of riders into contention. So nice job by Team Sky to this point. 6 kilometers remaining. Quick Step in the blue with the white helmets on the front of it. But coming up on the right-hand side is this Through the Sunshine. Yep, Française de Jeu trying to get organised for, is it going to be Arnaud Demar? Will it be Marc Sarraut? Will it be Jacopo Garnieri? They've got to make some decisions. I suspect the decision is made. Just got to try and play it out and get it to the line. The Katusha squad looking in good shape as well as Team Sunweb. Max Walscheid, their young German prodigy, so many strong German sprinting talent at the moment. Not least, of course, Andre Greipel. Now, where are Lotto Soudal? Just as I say it, they come up the middle. 3 riders leading the white colours, the white German national champions colours of Andre Greipel, who's just edged out by one of the Cannondale Drapac riders in green. Pick that up again, but Greipel, I don't think it was major difficulty for him. He's got 3 riders in front of him and he's well to the fore. Gets back into the wheel without too much difficulty. There's a couple of other Lotto Soudal riders trying to stay in contention. It's getting hectic there as well, isn't it? Riders riding shotgun for their sprinters and trying to muscle other riders off the wheel to make sure that there's no difficulty for them, as Tom Bonin continues to lead the charge. Stibar on the front, then Bonin, and other teams are even struggling to get up and alongside them.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of panic, teams coming up, and a lot of pushing and shoving for road space. And you know, we don't always see this in a lot of races, especially with 5 or 4.5 kilometres to go, normally inside the last 3 kilometres. But this pace is up. There's a lot of nerves. Everybody looking for the best possible position, and it's Ethics in the left-hand side. Tom Bonin, very experienced at this, is in the left-hand side. Sunweb over towards the right-hand side. But then it's a bit of a melee. Everybody looking round, trying to get in position.
4 kilometres to go.
Crash.
Crash in the middle of the peloton. They pile down like skittles. So many riders affected by that one. Is that Scott Thwaites was certainly one of the Dimension Data riders. Riders from Team Lotto, NL Jumbo. So many of them involved in it. And that looks like Sabatini as well for the Team Quickstep squad. Sport Vlaanderen. And it's out of all that chaos, the world champion Peter Sagan that gets his Bora Hansgrohe squad to the front of the peloton. Let's try and pick this one up again.
It's one of the Sunweb riders, just touches a wheel and goes right across. Greipel was one of the lucky ones, foot out, managed to come get out the way, but it just wipes right across the front of pretty much 3/4, and just a panic at the back by one of the Dimension Data riders, just come down on his own. But nothing that can happen there. The Sunweb rider just touched a wheel and just shot him right across the front of so many wheels.
J. Robert Thompson there for Dimension Data. Sagan on the front. It's Bora Hansgrohe on the front with just over 3 kilometres remaining in the Scheldeprijs for 2017. The German squad with their Slovakian world champion have been propelled into perfect position. Team Quickstep just playing a watching brief for the moment, but sitting handily placed as well, as indeed are the Française de Jeu squad. They've got, well, will it be for Arnaud Demar? Not so sure about that. I suspect not, as Peter Sagan pulls the plug. He's done a solid job. He'll be satisfied with that, and he'll send his team on to glory this afternoon if they can hang on to this one for a little while longer. There's plenty of teams that don't want to allow that. Just how will that crash have shaken things up for the other squads? Well, we'll find out very shortly as they crowd around. The next right-hander coming 2.5 kilometres from the line, piling in and trying to hang on to this one.
Yeah, there's only about 50-odd riders left now. A lot of riders have pulled the plug, but it's Bora towards the front. Haller is up there for Katusha, but everybody's sitting and waiting. Nilo Kaiser is there for Quickstep, and he has got Kittel just behind him, but only 3 riders in the blue now as they start to come up the outside with 2 to go.
Yeah, it's looking a bit bitty now, isn't it? Inside 2 kilometres to go, and Scheldeprijs. See Bahrain Merida also represented up there. Could it be that Bonifacio has managed to infiltrate this one? It's a somewhat messy finish for some of the teams. It's pretty organised at the moment. It's not worked out today for Andre Greipel. Or was he caught out by that crash? He managed to avoid it. One of the lucky ones in staying upright, but not able to contest the finish, so he will not get the victory that he so desires. But still, his fellow countryman Marcel Kittel, sitting third wheel at the moment with 1,500 metres remaining, is in prime position.
Yeah, it's Helio Kaiser at the front, Trentin and Kittel just behind Wante, and obviously just John Dibbing coming over on the right hand side. It's a very messy sprint. They've already lost a lot of teammates, so with 1.3 to go, it's Matteo Trentin.
Team Sky look in good shape, don't they? On the left-hand side of the bunch at the front, with Elia Viviani sitting second wheel at the moment, and now it's almost a case of not wanting to get to the front too soon and make sure that you hang on to this. We've got this right-hander inside, 1 kilometre remaining. One more turn comes with 800 metres remaining. Then it is a drag race to the line from there. It's a somewhat it's a smaller bunch than it was not so long ago. Throwing the bike into the final turn. It is Team Sky on the front, and Team Quickstep next up with Marcel Kittel, the reigning champion, looking in a gloriously perfect position at the moment. Elia Viviani sitting on his wheel, sitting fourth wheel at the moment. But who's going to prevent the champion from coming up with this victory? Looks like it's going to be Matteo Trentin to lead this one out for Team Quickstep. In the centre of picture, in the blue and white, it is Matteo Trentin that leads it, the Italian rider for Team Quickstep, with Bora Hansgrohe trying to get involved. Here comes Nasser Bouhanni from where? For Team Confidence. He looks like he's found his way into decent position. Elio Viviani for Team Sky with the white sunglasses, but going for the line. Who can stop him? It's Marcel Kittel going for the line. No way, he freewheels the last 5 yards as Marcel Kittel takes a 5th victory in Scheldeprijs, and he is the undoubted champion of this bike race, as indeed are Team Quickstep. A perfect day for Team Quickstep. Starts with the glorious send-off for Tom Bonin and is completed with another wonderful success. For Marcel Kittel, there's no one can stop him on this form. There's no one can stop Quickstep, and there's no one can stop Quickstep in this bike race. So great celebration as Tom Bonin, his broad beaming face, rolls it to the line. And what a job that he did for Marcel Kittel, who really enjoys this part of Belgium, really enjoys this race, and has given the crowd what they came to see. Not a Belgian success, but it's a success that's...
They'll take it.
They'll take that one.
They'll take that
glory.
one. That's a Belgian team, World Tour team, helped by this man here, and what a job he did for Marcel Kittel. Kittel has made this race his own over the last few years.
En jij hebt jouw deel van je werk daar prachtig in gedaan ook.
Ja, ik had een speciale dag voor mij natuurlijk. Als jullie weten, de hele dag mijn eigen streek.
Well, impromptu doorstep for Tom Bonin. He's smiles wide.
To see Groenewegen just finishing there, obviously affected by that massive crash there towards the finish. But this is Tom Bonin's day. This is Quickstep's day. They deserve that win. He was the out-and-out favourites, Kittel, and everybody was just looking for that podium position. And when you seen that Viviani was on the wheel of Kittel, he made no impact in the sprint at all. He was just holding the wheel. Bouhanni tried to come over Viviani, but he himself, they're short sprinters. Bouhanni's fast, Viviani's fast, but when this man Kittel gets up to speed, there's very few people that can get round him. And they were just waiting and waiting and waiting, and obviously just the power. You know, he's doing, as we see it again, he's got Trentin in front of him, and he's doing over 2,000 watts when he sprints. Viviani's propped on his wheel. Looked like, is it Rollins that came up as well, but Bouhanni just sitting and waiting. The South African champion is in there as well, Janse van Rensburg, but at this moment in time, that's the 1, 2, 3, absolutely. Viviani and Bouhanni made no dent into the lead by Kittel there, and it was an easy enough win and in a fairly hectic sprint.
Yeah, I think that was Pascal Ackermann for the Bora Hansgrohe squad that was also in that sprint, but going backwards a little bit by the end of it, and it was just such a fast lead out and such a perfect lead out for the Quickstep squad. Timed it to perfection, and Bouhanni and Elia Viviani, nothing to answer that. So Marcel Kittel gets the victory ahead of Viviani and Bouhanni. That's your podium visitors, and some great sprinting talent behind them. Marcel Kittel gets the victory in Scheldeprijs, his 5th success in the last 6 years, ahead of Elia Viviani and Nasser Bouhanni. Jürgen Rollins gets up for 4th. But ultimately, bit part players after what was an exceptional display of, well, pure bike racing and pure sprinting set up by the Quick Step squad.
Yeah, it was a difficult one. When you look at the sprint there, it was pretty messy in the end, and everybody knows as Kittel watches on, and with a nice smile, that was an easy enough sprint. So he only had to follow his teammates. He followed Tom Bonin in towards the last lap and on the last lap, and Matteo Trentin led the way, and he sprinted from the front, and everybody was just trying to hold his wheel to finish second and third there.
Well, the celebrations will go long into the night as they reflect on the career of Tom Bonin, but Marcel Kittel is assembling pretty impressive Palmares too, is he not? And that is his 6th victory of the year. Took a stage in Depana last week, so they're coming along at a steady rate, and he looks in fine form for the battles to come.
Yeah, it was just a pity about that crash. It really took out a lot of riders, and although Greipel had to take his foot out, he lost a bit of momentum and trying to come back towards the front. That's why it's so important. That's why there's a lot of nerves. We said it in the run-in that we don't normally see the amount of pushing and shoving to get towards the front. This race is notorious for its crashes towards the finish, and it was all about gaining that front position, keeping out of trouble, because let's be honest here, when that crash happened, it took out pretty much the from a third of the way down the bunch. The Sunweb rider just went from the right-hand side of the road to the left and took everybody out.
Yeah, if you were sitting on the left, I mean, you can't budget for that, can you? It was just, he just speared across. No one coming over Kittel in this form. Wow, what a day it has been. Final man to sign on for this year's edition of this race in his hometown. Tom Bonin waves goodbye to the crowd, waves goodbye to cycling in Belgium. One race remaining for him. 7 riders out front for much of the afternoon. The peloton, well, they kept tipping along at a fairly impressive rate. They certainly kept these guys honest, and these guys kept the peloton honest. It was a race run off at a fairly hectic pace. 7 riders out front managed to avoid some of the inevitable crashes that happen. This one of the more benign ones, or no serious injuries sustained. Timo Rosen, the one that was most delayed by that accident, finding himself on the deck as so many did during the afternoon. For many, as you say, Brian, it's about staying upright, keeping the legs turning, getting a good 200 kilometers of tough bike racing in the legs to keep the system understanding what it's got to do ahead of Paris-Roubaix on Sunday afternoon. Indeed, remember, we'll have that for you here on Eurosport pretty much throughout. The entire race will be covered live. Pim Ligtart and Ugert Jupa hung on longest. The wind-up began earlier than it might do in many other races, and all the teams wanted to be at the front with 20 kilometers to go, and indeed longer. And Tom Bonin went to the front on that final lap, stretched the peloton thin, kept Quick Step in great shape. Watch this accident, the right-hand side of picture. The rider in white with the black stripes just speared across to the left-hand side. Managed to pick up exactly who it was. J. Robert Thompson, just one rider that was delayed by that. A mass pileup removing several riders from contention, not least Andre Greipel. Peter Sagan had done a great job of keeping the Boris Hangstroh squad out of trouble. Greipel, there's to be no success in Scheldeprijs for him. When Trenton moved over, Kittel knew what he had to do, and he did it to absolute perfection. Elia Viviani, one of the quickest sprinters in the world, can't even come off his wheel. Nasser Bohani coming perhaps from too far back and getting out late. He's going to have to be satisfied with a podium finish. Celebrations all round for Marcel Kittel and his quick step squad. The canals and waterways of Belgium relatively still on what has been a day where the wind didn't really blow too much, and it meant that a big group was still in contention inside the last few kilometers. A bri for Marcel Kittel. Well, he really does enjoy this race. There's the top 10 again. Viviani getting up for second, Bouhanni, Jurgen Rollins, Pascal Ackermann getting up for fifth, Rudy Barbier, as we said, for Française de Jeu. And Française de Jeu also with Sarrault in there, Sinkeldam and Van Genechten in the top 10. Brian, job done for Peter Sagan, for Tom Bonin in terms of getting through this one and making sure they've kept the body. I think Reinhard Janse van Rensburg was actually in 7th place there. No doubt they'll pick that one up for the official results, but we'll give them a name check. It was a solid effort in the finishing sprint for the Dimension Data rider. But yeah, good job in terms of getting the miles in ahead of Paris-Roubaix for Sagan. But let's hear from Marcel Kittel, the race winner.
Marcel Kittel, heel erg gefeliciteerd. Er is een Nederlands spreekwoord dat zegt geen 2 zonder 3. Zeggen ze in het Duits geen 4 zonder 5?
Ja, misschien, ja, ik ben zeker heel trots op mijn overwinning vandaag. En, het was weer een fantastische werk van mijn ploeg. Ook Tom Boon was heel sterk in het finale. En ja, ik wil graag dankzij.
Well, he's delighted to win his 5th victory in Scheldeprijs, and delighted too that Tom Bonin could help him so much in the final lap.
Beter gekund? Ik denk het niet, hè?
Nee, denk ik ook niet. Ja, het was een beetje jammer dat Fabio Sabatini in de valpartij was. En dan ook niet in de finale met ons. Maar ja, de ploeg heeft het super gedaan. Matteo Trentin was weer heel sterk en ook heel smart. En ja, voor mij is het een echt super goede dag. En ja, ik ben heel tevreden met de ploeg.
Yeah, he's telling us just how careful he had to be in the sprint.
Die zijn allerlaatste wedstrijd op Belgische bodem reed.
With the other contenders around him, paying tribute, of course, to Sabatini and indeed to Mario Trentin.
Maar nu de laatste koers met hem samen te doen hier in de Scheldeprijs en dan nog ja, de overwinning te halen, ja, dat is echt een droom.
Marcel Kittel pays great tribute to his teammate Tom Bonin.
Ik vind het echt
at the conclusion of his storied career.
Dat hij ook zegt, oké, misschien ben ik Tom Boon, maar ik ben ook jouw ploeggenoot en ik doe alles voor jou en help je voor de overwinning. En ja, daarmee heeft hij ook weer getoond hoe sterk hij en wat voor een sportman hij is.
Any more proud than to have a rider of his ability in your team?
How important is this 5th victory in the Scheldeprijs?
Yeah, I think it's now a pretty good record so far. Yeah, Schoten feels a little bit like my living room, and I'm always really happy when I can win here again and see the fantastic spectators. And yeah, for me this is one of my favorite races, and yeah, it's for me outstanding to be able to win again here.
The Tour, of course, is probably one of your next goals. Also doing Giro d'Italia?
No, I won't be in the Giro. Fernando will be our sprinter there for the team, and I will take some rest now, restart my training again, concentrate on the Tour of California, and from there on my preparation for the Tour de France.
Many congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Sounds like his living room, isn't it? Schoten, he enjoys it, and he is becoming a bit of a Schoten favourite, isn't he?